Hello and welcome to Oneindia. Joining me right now is Israel's Consul General to South India, Orli Weitzman. So without wasting a second, let's get straight to the point. Madam Consul General, first things first, we're recording this interview on the 7th of October 2024. Exactly a year ago, Hamas invaded your southern communities, thereby committing a horrendous atrocity which led to the loss of more than 1,200 lives from what we've been told. To begin with, can you please tell us as to how the lives of Israelis across the country have been impacted by this incident, and what has been the change thereafter, and do you consider this change irreversible in any way?
So thank you, first of all, for having me and for understanding the delicacy of this day. It's a day that's it's very emotional for me, and I hope I'll find it easy to speak because I've been having a very since the morning or since last night, even when I was trying to imagine, 6th of October in the evening, I was thinking, just a year ago, young people were getting ready to go to a party celebrating peace. Families were finishing dinners together, not realizing what was about to happen. And it sort of gave me goosebumps. And I'm since then sort of feeling it's a very difficult feeling for me all throughout the day so far. I think the 7th of October was one of the most horrible things that I've ever experienced in my life. So on a personal level, I don't live down south, luckily, but I woke up in the morning, saw that there were some missiles fired towards southern Israel. And as you know, missiles have been fired to southern Israel since 2007 on and off. So it took me a while to realize that this was something different. When suddenly a siren went off in Jerusalem, and I remember physically going to my 14-year-old son's room, pulling him out of bed and running with him to the safe room where my other children were waiting. Um, and realizing that this is a new situation that we're in, that we're experiencing something bigger than we've ever before. I was beginning to get WhatsApps from friends who were being attacked in their houses, who were telling me that there were terrorists outside the house, and something that I couldn't imagine. I think this is, like you said, the most horrific attack since World War II, since the Holocaust. And we in Israel, as children, I remember being brought up on stories about the Holocaust, about mothers holding children and running and hiding, about fathers being shot in front of their children. And it was things that I, naturally found sad, but it was very hard to relate to because it was a long time ago and it was in a faraway place. And we felt that this could never happen to us. And suddenly we were hearing the same stories, but it was happening to us now, to people like me, to my friends, to people I know. And I think this psychologically is something that changed all of us. So many people were affected directly, and this is trauma that I can't even imagine myself. I can't begin to feel how scared they must have been when this was going on. Although we'll probably talk about that later on in the interview. But when missiles are being fired indiscriminately from Iran, you also get that very a scary feeling in your heart. So I think that what we went through that day was something that will have a mark not only on the people who went through it, obviously, and the families who still have hostages in Gaza, 101 people who are still there, and we don't know what they're going through, and that I can't even begin to think about because I get distressed and can't function. So I try not to think about it as much as I can because I really can't function when I think about it too deeply. But I think also the rest of the Israeli society is affected. I see how young children are affected psychologically, but I think in a way it also brought Israel together, and it gave the true meaning of Israel again. It gave us the understanding of the true meaning and the importance of Israel. Israel was founded in 1948 after the Holocaust, when we were feeling the strongest feeling was never again. And something went wrong, and it happened. I wouldn't say it's not a Holocaust, but something terrible happened again. It reaffirmed our faith and our understanding that Israel is an important country to have. It's the most important thing that's happened to the Jewish nation, and it's something that is it's very deep rooted in our hearts, and it made us realize the importance of this and our commitment to this country because of these events.
Ma'am, any personal anecdotes you'd like to share with our viewers? Because personally, I believe it's impossible to even fathom what victims might have been put through during the course of that time. Because as I believe that until and unless you felt it yourself, it's very hard to imagine or be in their shoes or feel like you're in their shoes. Any personal anecdotes you can share which can help our viewers understand things better as to what is the permanent change or the permanent scar that this incident has left on the entire nation?
So again, I think I'll talk about my personal experience. So after the attacks on October 8th, when I went back into work, I mean, of course, people were going. It was a Saturday, so offices were closed. But of course, we opened, the foreign ministry opened, and people were working. And I came back to work on Sunday, the 8th of October, and I started realizing that I wasn't interacting. I felt I think survivor's guilt because I wasn't personally affected. My family were safe. My children were safe. And I felt I think kind of on a personal issues like survivor guilt. And I wanted to help more, even though what I was doing in the foreign ministry was important and the work of a diplomat is always important. But I was stationed in Israel at the time. And then I asked to work directly with the families who've been affected. So I took on a role at the ministry to try and help families of kidnapped of hostages, to try and get the world to understand what they were going through. And I went with some of the families to different places around the world. I went to mostly to Europe with a few delegations with different families. And I think for me, that was a profound experience. I mean, it's something that you can't imagine. I think I have children of my own, and I'm sure the viewers have children of their own, and you know how important it is to feel when you know that your child is home safe in bed, or if it's older children, if they go out to a party, to know that they're safely back in their house. I always have my kids text me to say that they've come in because I'm always worried about them. And you're meeting families, people who have kids the same age as my kids, and they don't know what's going on with them. And for a year, they don't know what's happening to them, if they're dead or alive, if they're being tortured or not being tortured, if they're eating or not eating. And to be with these people and to see the strength that they have to do what they can to keep fighting for them. And I don't know where they get the ability, but I then realized they have no choice. And to me, it showed something about human strength and what parenthood is, what family is, what a society is, the strength that we found within, they find within themselves. And I'm just really happy that I had the experience to see this strength that people have within them. It's something that you can't imagine that exists. So I pray every day, and I see, to many of us, it's just names, but I know the parents of the names, or the brother, or the aunt, it's real people. I think it's hard to relate if you don't actually know them. It's not just pictures or not just names. It's real people who are out there. It's people who like to play the piano, or it's people who like to go to the movies, or it's people who like to dance, or it's an annoying older brother, or it's your mother that always annoyed you before. It's real people that you have issues with, and you have relationships with, and you want them home. And that's something that I think for me, to see the human strength from within is something that I I don't know think I would have had a chance to see it. I hope I never have a chance to see it again. I hope for world peace and for everybody to be live a happier life. But for me, that was a really a life-changing experience for the way I see humanity and what humanity does for each other, what people that love each other can do for each other.
That's possibly the hardest thing to cope with, right? Uncertainty lingering over the safety and security of your loved ones. Coming to the present day scenario, leaders from across the world are obviously piling pressure on Israel to arrive at a diplomatic solution for the entire scenario. Considering the fact that, and you've said it in as many words in multiple interviews prior to this, considering the fact that Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah, as on date, are not ready to accept that Israel has a right to exist as an independent state, which is fundamental to the security and sovereignty of the nation that you come from. Is there ever a diplomatic solution that can be arrived at? What's the way that you're looking at? Because if your existence is what is bothering the other party, I mean, what is the discussion then?
So as you said, I think Iran as being the puppeteer of all, to me, all the evil in the Middle East, using proxies as Hamas, using proxies like Hezbollah. And these proxies have no issue using their own people as human shields. So we see a lot of suffering on those people's behalf as well, which is it's horrifying to me. But then, like you said, the diplomatic solution or the diplomatic pressure should be put on Iran to accept Israel's right to exist. And I'm not saying, I mean, other solutions have to be, then the details have to be sorted out. There'll be a lot of ironing to do once that happens. But the basis is to accept Israel's right to exist. And I think Iran is the rest. I'm not talking about Hezbollah and Hamas are terrorist groups. They should be eliminated. Iran is a sovereign country. The regime in Iran is a regime that promotes hate, that promotes extreme Islamism, and it's something that until they accept Israel's right to exist, there can't be a diplomatic solution because diplomacy, in its core, a solution found between countries who respect each other, even if there are differences. So I think the pressure should be put on Iran to accept the right to exist, and then we can iron out the details. But that's like the basic that happens. So if pressure should be put anywhere, it should be put on Iran, who is basically the puppeteer of this whole situation, and who've been funding terrorist groups. That's their way. That's what they do. They fund terrorism. They perpetuate terrorism, and until that's stopped, I don't see any other solution.
While none can justify or support what happened on the 7th of October, there's a flip side to it, right? There's a humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza. Civilians in Gaza have been suffering as well for the past year or so, 365 days to be honest, considering the 7th of October right now. Any regrets on those lines? Because there are a lot of communities, there are a lot of leaders across the world who have also come out and said that Israeli operations could have been the reason why this is unfolding, and the lives of Gazans have also been endangered by certain actions taken by the state of Israel. What's your response on that?
I think that it's not looking at the reality as it is. The reality is that there are terrorist groups that are using their own people as human shields. In 2005, Israel on its own decided to leave Gaza. There were no Israeli forces in Gaza in 2005. In 2007, Hamas took over, physically throwing out the Palestinian Authority people. You can actually see videos of them throwing Palestinian Authority officials from the roofs. Okay, this is the kind of people that we're dealing with. And they took over the Gaza Strip. Then they decided that their main priority is to eliminate Israel. Gaza, I remind you, there were no Israeli forces in Gaza. If the money coming into Gaza at that point was invested in infrastructure for the people, schools built, parks built, I imagine amusement parks for children, movie theaters, it could have been a heaven. It could have been it's a small place. It easily could have been up. They've got a beautiful coastline. It could have easily been built up into something very nice, very calm, full of tourism. But the Hamas chose that it wanted the money put into infrastructures, that its whole dedication was to eliminate Israel. So until the Palestinian people are led by other people who want their best interests, who have their best interests at heart, we have a problem. If the priority is to try and to make war, to try and eliminate Israel, and that's where the money is going, that's the lines that it's taken, and they don't mind using their own people as human shields, as bait even for this kind of war, then yes, of course they'll be suffering, and believe me, it hurts me to see the suffering on the Palestinian people, because I think they are in a very bad situation. There's no governing official looking out for their best interest. They are governed by people, by a terrorist group that's only looking to distract and has no regard for their human life. So I think it's a horrible situation, and I feel for them. But I think the solution is to eliminate the terrorist groups.
Ma'am, how do you respond when the United States of America, which happens to be a very key strategic partner to Israel, also refuses to buy this argument completely when you say that civilians being used as shields is the only reason why civilians are suffering in Gaza? Joe Biden himself has come out and vocally put out statements which do not sync with what Israel is saying at this point in time.
So again, I think America I want to be clear, America is a very important, close ally of Israel, and always has been and always will be. And I think that their support has been invaluable throughout this whole year. But I think they too, despite what you're saying, they too realize that the key to the solution is eliminating terrorist groups, and the key to the solution is Iran. In the end, Iran and its attitude is what's making the world a difficult place right now. I think it's a source of evil, and I think my prime minister has come out really nicely and said that it's a war now between evil and good, and if we want good to prevail, Iran has to be stopped, and terrorist groups have to be stopped.
Got it. What's Israel's end game in Gaza at this point in time? What is it? What is the logical conclusion that Israel wants to take this matter to?
So the things that have to happen in Gaza is for Israelis to be safe, for Israelis to be able to go. That's one thing. For Israelis to go to sleep quietly at night and know that in the morning terrorists are not going to invade and rape their wives and daughters, and not going to murder them and burn their houses alive. So that's a goal, and also of course to get the hostages back. I can't stress this enough. There are 101 people still out there, real people with real families who miss them, who want to hold their children, hug their loved ones. And so this is something that these are two things that have to happen.
France was one of the first countries to recognize Israel's right to exist as an independent state. And recently, as you might be aware, the president himself has come down very hard on the state of Israel, saying that Lebanon cannot become the next Gaza. And he's also spoken against certain operations executed by the Israeli establishment. So what's your response to a country like France saying what?
So I think that all the countries should take more seriously and realize the fact that we're dealing with terrorist group. It's very easy to give advice when it's not your families that are affected, when it's not your children who are waking up into these horrible situations, who live in their home and haven't had to live outside of their homes, as tens of thousands of Israelis have had to leave their homes in the border. So it's something that when it's your own people, I think you react differently, and I think Israel is doing whatever it needs to do in order to make sure that these things are stopped, and that Israelis feel safe again in all the borders.
I'm considering the fact that Israel is now executing ground operations or field operations in Lebanon. What is the objective in the northern side, and where does Israel hope to take this? Is it the complete because the Hezbollah chief has already been eliminated, and from what we've given to understand, an entire ring of leadership has also been eliminated. Despite that, they still sit on a cache of weapons, which can be very alarming. I get that. But what is it that Israel seeks to do over the period of the next 3 or 6 months, if you could give us any?
So I think if you look at what's happening in Israel even today, you'll see that Israel is, as we're speaking, being bombarded by missiles that Hezbollah is firing from the north. So the main goal is to have peace, for Israeli citizens to live peacefully in their homes. Until that happens, Israel will have to do whatever it has to do in order to make sure that this is maintained, that there's security. Israel strives for peace, but if peace is not achievable, then security is a must. Okay, that's something that Israel will not compromise on. Now, there was a UN resolution, the UN resolution 1701, which defined that Hezbollah should be north of the Litani River. If that was implemented to begin with, we wouldn't be here today having this discussion. So I think the diplomatic way of doing it is to make sure that that's implemented. But since it wasn't implemented, and the whole area of South Lebanon is ridden with missiles that are inside the civilian communities, Israel has no choice but to make sure that this threat is eliminated and that Israel's borders are secure.
Ma'am, there's two parts to my next question. There are some security analysts across the globe who claim that Israel is presently implementing the Dahia Doctrine, right? The infamous Dahia Doctrine, which essentially means bombard civilian establishments, and therefore which leads to the government establishment surrendering. The second part of my question has everything to do with the recent documentary that Al Jazeera has put out, titled, the number of times Israel has tried to silence them while they were reporting on the humanitarian crisis on the Gaza Strip. So how do you respond to each of them? Because these are serious allegations being leveled against the state.
So Israel is facing sometimes more propaganda than journalism. So there are some parties that try to silence other voices that are being heard by Palestinian people themselves who are suffering from Hamas, by Lebanese people who are suffering from Hezbollah. And these voices are not always being heard because some people have an interest in showing only one-sided stories. They don't show the civilians who are being coerced to put weapons in their houses, who are forced to who are shot at, even sometimes by Hamas in Gaza when they try to run away and get to the humanitarian corridors that Israel tries to create in order to keep people safe. So this is something that Israel is facing all the time, a narrative by some people or some organizations that want to try and portray a very one-sided a situation that have an interest to try and get Israel to look as if it's trying to purposely hurt, when Israel does everything that it possibly can in order to avoid hurting civilians. And that's, I think, why we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing.
The elimination of Nasrallah and various senior commanders of the Hezbollah, how has that altered the dynamics in that particular region, and where does it stand as on date?
So we're it's the beginning of eliminating the terrorist groups. I think the fact that Nasrallah chose to unprovokingly attack Israel on the 8th of October, we were so shocked with what was happening on the 7th, and on the 8th we suddenly get rockets fired from the northern border. So this is something, and we tried. It's almost a year since Israel actually dealt with that, and so now Israel has shown that enough is enough. And this is something that will continue, and Israel will not put up with any more of this, and will do what it has to do. And I think the heads of these organizations are the most problematic people. They're the ones who lead this mentality of trying to do everything that they can to destroy Israel by using their own people. So I think it's a good step in trying to, first of all, and foremost, protect Israeli civilians and regard safety, but also to maybe try and help other people who are being used by these organizations as human shields, and to stop that as well in the like a much further goal.
Is a peaceful solution to the existing conflict the only thing that Israel is looking at with respect to Lebanon, or are there any territorial ambitions that Israel is holding on to? Because these questions are being raised in international media.
So Israel's end game is to have peace with everyone. However, as long as Iran doesn't accept that, and as long as Iran keeps using the northern borders, Israel will have to, again, I don't know how exactly, and I don't want to comment on operations, and I don't
It'd be foolish of me to ask you to divulge those details on media, ma'am. I wouldn't do that myself.
I don't know exactly how things are going to play out, but again, Israel's going to have to do what it has to do to make the borders safe. I don't think Israel has any land aspirations of Lebanon, but again, if the Lebanese army can't keep the border safe, then Israel will keep the border safe. Israel will do whatever it has to do to keep borders safe, but I can't tell you exactly what's going to be because I don't know myself.
Iran's supreme leader says Israel can never eliminate Hezbollah. They're that strong in terms of capabilities, military capability, and the amount of ammunition they've stored in. How does Israel respond to that in terms of the strength or the capability that they possess to eliminate Hezbollah as well as Hamas?
Let me answer this way. I have no doubt that Israel, my answer will be in two parts. I have no doubt that Israel has the capability of dealing with Hezbollah. We're a strong army, and we're fighting for our survival. We're fighting for the right cause. We are fighting for freedom. We're fighting against terrorism. So I have no doubt. On the other hand, Iran should be saying Iran has the key to disarm Hezbollah. If they think that Israel doesn't, then maybe they themselves should do it. Maybe they should start looking at disarming Hezbollah, realizing that terrorism isn't the answer, and trying to recognize Israel to have a peaceful solution. So they hold the key to that.
Ma'am, energy establishments and nuclear establishments have been in the news for the past couple of weeks, as you must be aware. On one hand, the outgoing US president warns Israel against attacking any of those. On the other hand, one of the candidates running from the presidential post, Donald Trump, comes out and says that should be on the top of your list. As from an Israeli lens, how do you look at this? And is that even something that Israel is considering at this point in time?
So Israel, again, I mean, the American officials, different officials have entitled to their own opinions, and I leave American politics to Americans. Israel always, the main consideration for Israel is not what one person says or another person says, is what's good for Israel, what will keep Israelis safe. I think I'm repeating myself because I think that's the main point, and that really is what is like our compass. Okay, that's what is going to keep Israelis safe and secure. And that's the decisions there. That's the compass when decisions are made, and that'll be the compass when decisions are made if and when Israel decides to react to what Iran did when Iran attacked indiscriminately citizens and civilians of Israel. So the main thing, our compass is always what keeps Israelis safe.
Should Indians be worried about the security of their loved ones in Israel at this point in time? Because that's a concern that is rising as we speak.
So I want to say that just as Iran and other terrorist groups are indiscriminately attacking. Israel is indiscriminately defending. Israel developed and put in a lot of money and effort into developing different systems to protect from missiles of different ranges. And these missiles protect indiscriminately. They protect Israelis, they protect Indians, and they protect any other nationality that are in Israel. Indians have the same access to safe rooms as Israelis do. There's no difference in that sense. Israel treats everybody there the same and hopes for the safety and strives and puts effort into the safety of everybody there.
The relationship between India and Israel has been cultivated over the past few years and has only grown multiple folds, right? Both the prime ministers also share a very good relationship. Can you throw some light or shed some light on how this relationship has grown, and what sort of a role do you expect India to play in this particular scenario?
So I think the friendship between India and Israel is valuable and kinship, and the ally that India has become. And it's a very, very important. I think there's cooperation going on in so many different fields. I mean, we have cooperation in fields of innovation and agriculture and water. And there's so much opportunities for relations between the country. And these opportunities are being seized. And it's beautiful to see. I think since I've been here for 2 months, and I've seen the cooperations and the opportunities that have arisen and the things that people want to do together. And I think that it's a wonderful relationship. And I really hope that it continues to grow and that Israel and India will have or keep having or growing the relationship beyond the conflict. I mean, the conflict is only a small part of Israel. Israel is so much more than that. There's so much going on, and there's so much we can learn from each other and do together. And I really hope to see that coming up in the future.
Ma'am, my last question to you has two parts. One, families of hostages, how are they coping with the present scenario? And are they bound to listen to any good news anytime soon? I mean, what's the progress with respect to getting them back? Second part of the question, obviously, is with Israel mobilizing its forces and executing field operations in Lebanon, there are upwards of 60,000 people, from what reports are stating at this point in time, who've been displaced from their habitats. While you seek to rehabilitate or provide normalcy to the lives of your citizens, there are citizens of other countries also which are getting impacted at this point in time. So does Israel believe in the value of human life across borders? I mean, because that needs to be stated at this point in time. What's your response on both these?
Absolutely. I think I've mentioned this before. Israel did whatever it could in order to avoid casualties, especially well, not especially now in Lebanon, before in Gaza. But the thing is that when Hezbollah hides weapons inside homes and houses, to eliminate the weapons, we have to go into these houses and take out the weapons. But Israel gave warning to all these civilians. Now we're hoping that once the area is secure and they can go back to their houses, once Hezbollah, that's why I'm saying Hezbollah is harming not only Israelis but harming Lebanese life. So once Hezbollah is out of the picture, and they can go back to living their peaceful life and have a peaceful life. If the border is safe, then the border is safe. Then they can live on one side of the border, we can live on the other side of the border, and there should be no threat. Israel, I think, values life very, very much, no matter what life it is. Unfortunately, we're dealing, like I said before, with an enemy that doesn't value life, even their own lives, even their own children. So that's why you see the difference in the way they treat things and the way we do. And we see this especially now with the first part of your question, with the families of the hostages that are yearning to get their people back. And if I had news about what would happen with the hostages, I wish I did, but unfortunately I don't. And I hope that we have good news soon. And I can only pray for a better future for everybody, for the hostages themselves, for the family of the hostages, for Israelis, and for Palestinian Lebanese people who are suffering because of the terrorist organizations which they're being held captive of. I hope that we all live peacefully in the near future.
Thank you, ma'am. We all hope that peace is restored in the region. And going forward, I hope that no country, including Israel, sees a day like the 7th of October 2023 once again. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Log on to oneindia.com for more updates.